Hey there, my name is Frog, and today we're going to be going over my Rio Major Champion Stage pick'ems. Um, you might have seen on Twitter, I'm one of 5 people that was in a certain poll that got 5 picks correct for the Legend stage, and as such, I figured it might be easier to go through the Champion stage together because I'm going a little kooky, right? Some people will probably criticize me for putting NIP 03 in the Legend stage, and rightly so. I mean, I knew it was going to be cutthroat. I had a bit of logic behind it because I've not been impressed with NIP so far, and I figured it's not going to be Sprout or Bad News Eagles who are seen as underdogs. It's likely going to be somebody who's just going to underperform, and thus I picked NIP. But anyways, we're not talking about the Legend stage. We're talking about the Champion stage, and as such, I figured I'd go through my pick'ems with you guys. So we're going to start with the top here. We've got Outsiders and Fnatic. I mean, realistically, you look at this much like the Legend stage, it's kind of anyone's game, right? And what I mean by that is that, like, no one was really expecting FaZe to go 0-3 as the #1 team in the world, the former major winners. It's very cutthroat right now. And on any given day, I wouldn't be surprised with anyone winning this thing. But still, these are maybe the the outcomes that I think are fairly likely. And I feel like I've been unorthodox up until this point. I'll continue being so, and we'll see what happens. So for this stage, we got Fnatic and Outsiders, both very good teams. However, I think I'm going to favor Outsiders going into this matchup because I feel like overall they've been really consistent. I haven't put them in any of my previous stages because the logo is really hard to draw, and I was just drawing my pick'ems for the fun of it. But also because I felt like they were such a safe pick. I knew that they would likely make it as far as they have. And as such, I figured I'll just take a gamble on some other teams and try to see if I can get some extra points that way. But I think generally, I mean, Outsiders, very solid team. Say what you will, James is an incredible opper, regardless of what you think of his play style. And it works. I mean, Outsiders have really done a great job to accommodate Fame and Norbert into this lineup. And it's not like they've kept everything as is and just tried to completely replace Yekindar. I mean, they've done a great job of adapting with the new players they have. But I mean, we've already seen Fame is such a talented rifler. He was amazing on K23, and I'm not surprised to see him doing this well on Outsiders now. And when I look at Fnatic, I mean, I'm pleasantly surprised that they made it as far as they did. I thought they would probably go 2-3 last stage, if I'm honest. But super hyped for Mezzi and Roy, players that I've been following for a long time, and I'm very happy to see finally succeeding. I just don't think that Fnatic have the kind of structure that really works against a team like Outsiders. I think that they're still figuring things out, and it takes, they rely a lot on the individuals, and rightfully so. All 5 of these players are very capable, right? Crims can always roll back the years. Mezzi, despite being an IGL, is still in my eyes kind of a star player. Fasher has been an amazing playmaker, so is Roy, and Nico Does can always step up on any given round, right? But I just think that the consistency is still lacking, and when I think of consistency, I really do think of Outsiders. Their play style is just, they're a well-oiled machine. Even when you just look at their bomb management, I mean, this is a team that really knows what they're doing. They're capable of making mistakes, but the individuals are there, the system is there. I think they just have the better matchup against Fnatic here. Then we move over to Mouse and Cloud9. Again, I'm gonna just go with Cloud9. CIS Copium, I guess. I love Mouse. They were my 3-0 picks for the Challenger stage, and when that worked out. And I put them as 3-0 again for the Copium and the Legend stage, expecting they likely weren't going to go 3-0, but why not? If they do, it gives me another point. And I'm a big fan of this team. I used to be a Mouse fan back when they added Stiko and Sunny way back when. I was a big fan of Rops, obviously. Then they remade this roster with like Kerrigan and Frozen and Woxic. I thought that was super cool. And then this new iteration, which is just the NXT boys, who I've followed very closely, having worked for WePlay. I love Mouse. I love Xertion. I'm so glad he's finally on this team. But I just think Cloud9 have the edge right now. I mean, they're looking so good. They had a bit of a stumble in the Challenger stage, but they really took it back in the Legend stage. And I mean, now it's Shiro, arguably like a top 2 opper maybe right now with the way he's playing. And Axel's finally showed up. Nafani had a good Legend stage as well. I mean, you can never count out Hobbit. This is a dangerous Cloud9. And I kind of want to believe in that storyline as well. We'll get more into that later, but I think that Cloud9 really have something going for them here, and this definitely could be their major. And yeah, I think it's just a matter of like, MOUs are good. I love them to death, but I think Cloud9 just have the edge here. They're in better shape. And if I'm honest, I mean, when I look at the op v op right now, Torgy's not been, his usual self. And I think there's been a bit of a steady decline, maybe even since they added Xerxen into the roster. I can't really say why that is. Maybe it's just a matter of, because they've changed the rules a lot. Maybe Torchi's not able to play the way he was before, and he's still just kind of rediscovering that. I'm not quite sure. But I think Shiro's just been too much of a monster, and if Torchi can't really show up for MOUs, it's going to be really difficult, even if Frozen is, arguably in the best shape we've seen him in years. And Xerxen is a beast, and JDC can have such sick rounds. Dexter even had a few good maps recently. I just don't think that's enough to take down Cloud9, but realistically, as I said earlier, anything is possible. MOUs could win the whole thing. I wouldn't even be that surprised, right? But I'm going to go with Cloud9. So for Spirit Heroic, this is kind of a hard matchup. In my opinion, it might even be the closest matchup out of all these games. But I'm going to go with Spirit. And I know, CIS, Copium, haha, but like, I think that Spirit have just the better look right now. Even if you were watching yesterday, Wonderful had like a terrible, by his standards, Ancient, but overall he's had a really good run up until this point. The Legend stage is really good for him, and I mean, I've been following this kid since he was on Traska in like 2020, I think. So I know what he's made of. I know he's always been capable of going to the top, and to see him excel on this Team Spirit lineup and really replace Dexter somewhat so effortlessly is really nice to see. But we're also seeing Patsy, at this point, probably the best LAN rookie we've had in a long time. Sirens also looked pretty good. Magix is really in form right now, so that's nice to see. And Chopper's also really like having some great rounds. I think more than maybe any other IGL right now. He's kind of looking the best individually. I guess Mezzi could be a contender for that, but still, I think that it's just Spirit are looking like such a solid team right now that I think they kind of have the edge over Heroic, who I'm looking at them, and I mean, no offense, but Stown is still on the plane on his way to Rio. Like, he's just not showed up at all for the major so far, and it's kind of concerning because I think, if not mistaken, Cadian's the highest rated player for Heroic right now. Fair enough, he's veteran of the scene, and he's somebody who always gets very fired up. You can't really count out Heroic. I very much thought, much like Outsiders, that they would make the champion stage. In fact, I was more confident in them making it than the likes of Vitality, Liquid, or even FaZe for that matter. But I'm not convinced. It's definitely possible that Stown shows up tomorrow. He wakes up, he shakes off the jet lag, and he go kill, right? Because he's arguably like the top 2 player in Denmark this year, behind Blame F, maybe even ahead. Arguable, but with Stown not really there, and I think Shush is the second highest rated player for Heroic right now, it's just, this is not the well-oiled machine we're kind of used to seeing with Heroic, and with how Spirit are looking, I think they're just in better form. That said, it could go the other way around, and I wouldn't be too surprised, especially if Stown does show up, or Wonderful goes missing again on the op. It might be a very difficult matchup, but I think Spirit might have the upper edge here. And now, finally, some people are going to love me, and some people are going to think I'm insane and try to put me in an asylum, but I'm going to go with Furia over Navi. I know, I stopped the CIS Copium. Crazy, I know. But, most people have got Navi to win the whole thing, and I can't really argue with them. Remaining out of these teams, they're probably the highest rated on the HLTV world rankings, right? And, it's still Navi. They have Simple, arguably still best player in the world. But I'm just not convinced. Out of what I've seen from them so far, it's not a bad Navi, right? And they're certainly more in shape than FaZe were, as we could see. I mean, they took care of BNE very effortlessly, whereas FaZe were kind of struggling. It didn't feel like they were playing their own game at that point. But I'm not really seeing the Navi that like really scares me, if that makes sense. Whereas Furia, I mean, you're in Caserato. I mean, they're pretty much in the best shape I think I've ever seen them, and I've been following them since 2018 when they just joined Furia. So I don't really know what to think of this matchup, but I just want to go with what feels right in my heart, and this is where I'm getting unorthodox. I really think Furia could upset Navi here, because Simple's looking good, but not the best version of himself. And Bit hasn't shown up either. I mean, he's been, I think, the worst performer so far for Navi, which is kind of surprising considering how well he did back in Stockholm and even in Antwerp. He's not the type of player that really lets the pressure get to him in that sense, but he's just not been there. And without that, like, second or third star of Bit, I just don't really see it. Now, in all fairness, in his absence, Perfecto has really stepped up. He had some great games yesterday, especially on Mirage, but when I watched Mirage, like, Simple was entirely missing on that T side. It was all Perfecto. He had maybe 2 rounds that I can recall where, oh yeah, okay, Simple, haha. But it was only on the CT side that Simple finally woke up. Now, maybe that's enough, but Simple's just somebody who performs regardless. And when he's not really performing, that's where I'm a bit worried. Whereas, now you've got the Furia home crowd buff. I kind of believe in that. Drop's been playing really well, albeit they went 3-0, so not a lot of games to go off of, but he actually performed really well, which is nice. Safe and Art as well, both doing quite well. And as I said, like, Yuri and Caserato, the duo, man, like, they're so good that I'm just kind of thinking this is it. So I'm going to go with Furia over Navi. I know this is, it's still pretty crazy, but I think it makes sense in the context of this is not the Navi we're used to seeing. I wouldn't be surprised if Navi beat Furia. I still think of them as the favorites going into that matchup, but I really believe in the Furia underdogs with the home crowd behind him. The duo, playing as well as they have, arguably one of the best in the world right now. And then the other 3 players kind of doing quite well on Furia, whereas Navi, you're still missing Bit. Electronic's been pretty good. Perfecto has stepped up, but how much will that last? SDY's been present, I suppose. He's not underwhelming per se, but he's never going to be like the big carry for this team. I'm just not too convinced by this Navi, and that's why I really think that an upset is possible here, and that's what I'm going for. Now, for the next matchups, between Cloud9 and Outsiders, I know I really sung Outsiders' praise earlier with their consistency in their system, but I'm still going to favor Cloud9 here. I think they are the favorites in that matchup regardless, but I think that, it's just Shiro. On any day of the week, you should be able to outclass somebody like Jame in terms of just raw opping skill. I'm not quite sure. Like, it could go either way. That's just kind of how Outsiders are, paid by the round, haha. But like, they really always bring it super close. They're always such a competitive team, and I've played scrims a few times, and I've experienced that firsthand. What that, like, scary play style is like. But I still think Cloud9 just have the edge going into that matchup. I'm not quite sure what to expect in terms of, like, Hobbit, or if Nafani will be able to continue to perform super consistently. If Axel goes missing like he did in the Challenger stage, I'm definitely very worried, but I want to believe. I think this could be a really good major run for them, and I still think they're just kind of just one little above Outsiders right now, so gonna go with them. As for Spirit and Furia, again, I sung Spirit's praise, but I'm gonna go with Furia for the same reason I think they can beat Navi. I think once they're fired up, once they're going, the home fucking crowd screaming behind them, cheering them on, I think this Furia could do it, man. Like, I think this could be a really, really sick run for them. And this is kind of where I want to talk about storylines a little bit, because we've got Cloud9 and Fury here making it through. I want to just talk quickly about Cloud9. Obviously, this is a bit of a funny coincidence, but the previous Cloud9 roster, the NA Cloud9 roster that won the major in Boston, had a very similar run up until this point, right? I believe they were 0-2 down, then came back 3-2 in the Challenger stage, then they just made it through Legend stage, super easily, and then they made it all the way as underdogs to win the entire major. It's a funny coincidence because I think this could happen again, even though it's a completely different team, it's just the same organization. And what I think is kind of cool for this Cloud9 roster, as opposed to maybe every other team here, is that this is like a really nice storyline for them. A team that we saw be #1 in the world for a few months during the online era, but couldn't really find their footing and remain up there consistently. But, as Gambit, they were absolutely insane. Everyone looked up to them. Everyone started playing like they were. And then they were criticized heavily afterwards, saying that they couldn't perform the same way on land. And I think this is a really nice story for them to kind of show, no, we're a new generation of CIS talent, much like Outsiders and Team Spirit here. But, we're actually capable of lifting trophies, and it's kind of always eluded them. And I think this could be a really nice way for them to win the major. It'd be really nice to see Hobbit win his second major in this sense, because when he joined Gambit, I think he might have been, was he even officially signed at the time? I think he got officially signed after the major, and he was the young star for this Gambit lineup that had the likes of Adren and Doja and Mo and Zeus, obviously, right? All bigger names, much more veteran and well tested players. And Hobbit was the X Factor. He was the young gun for this team that had a very crazy run over in Krakow. But I am thinking it's possible again. I think it's really cool that Hobbit potentially now takes on this role as he's the veteran, and he's got this new generation of players that, while he's not leading, is still kind of the guiding figure for them. And to be able to win his second major that way, sort of lead these guys to winning their first major and really solidifying themselves as a solid team, even if it just ends up being a one-up major, and Cloud9 fall off a few months from now and aren't the number one team in the world or anything. It's still quite cool, it cements themselves in history. Shiro and Axel as these two crazy stars. Nafani is a promising IGL that kind of came out of nowhere, enters as just a really solid role player that is always very much criticized. I think it'd be cool. But then when you look at the other side of the table, you've got Furia. And Furia have maybe an even more exciting story. I mean, this is the first major in Brazil and home soil. And they were the only team kind of going into it that people really thought could do it, right? You looked at Imperial, and it's well, there's the big names like Fallen and Fur. You looked at 00 Nation, Taco, and Coldzera. I personally had higher hopes for that team, but they just weren't really able to perform up to expectations, and that's not too surprising, I guess. But Furia is the only team that, I mean, since the fall off of the legendary Brazilians over in SK, Furia is the only team that's really stepped up, right? But they've never been able to take the final step, right? They last won, I think, what was it, IEM New York in was it 2020 or something like that? They won some sort of online DreamHack thing, I want to say, as well, back in 2020. They've never really won anything too significant. They've not been able to cement themselves in history, yet they've been the team that kind of took on the torch from Fallen and co. And it's kind of nice to see them really have this amazing run on home soil with, okay, again, arguably one of the hottest duos right now here in Casarato. I mean, these guys are in their primes. They're getting a bit older still, but this is the time. They can win tournaments. They can win majors. They're in that kind of form right now. And to do it on home soil, to really cement themselves in history as, the next generation of Brazilians taking on what Fallen built upon and making their own legacy, I think that's really awesome. However, I think that overall, Cloud9 probably still has the advantage. I know I've been talking about the home buff, but I think that Cloud9 is just maybe a bit of a better team, and as such, I think that they might just have the edge over Furia. Either way, I could, see it going either way in that grand final with the emotions, the pressure. If it gets to the likes of Axel or Shiro even, and he has a bad map, Furia are going to pounce on that, pun intended. So those are my pick'ems. This is what I'm hoping sort of the champion stage looks like. Is it what's likely to happen? Not necessarily. I don't think anything is particularly likely. Sure, you could still say NAVI might just, go boom, boom, boom and win the whole thing. It's possible. They're still a very solid team with simple, you can never count them out fully. But I still think there's a bit of logic behind my pick'ems here, and that it's not impossible, right? I know it's unorthodox, and as one of the few people that still has a shot at a diamond coin, maybe some people will criticize me for saying, for going with something so crazy. But At the end of the day, it's pick'ems. It's just to have some fun. I was unorthodox in the past, looking at these teams. I thought Mouse could go 3-0. I thought Nip would go 0-3, and it worked out for me. So I'm going to go with this. I'm still curious to get your thoughts in the comments down below. I'm expecting a few comments like, Frog, you're crazy. What are you doing? But overall, I still want to hear your thoughts. Maybe, you think Fnatic will win because of, Mezzi really stepping up or Roy having an amazing series. I don't know. I'm just curious to hear your thoughts. Leave them down below. I'll be sure to respond. And that's about it. Thank you very much.